So, there's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. So as promised, I thought I would take the opportunity to talk about the story a little bit. Some of the themes, separate fact from fiction, and where did the story come from, its origins a little bit. So that's what we'll do. Here we go. Where did the story come from? As a kid, I did not have many friends. When I was in high school, I would spend the lunch hour doing circles in the foyer, just inside the front doors of the school, doing circles in my wheelchair over and over and over. I think people were worried about that, and I suppose rightly so. I mean, I was living in my own little world. But my world wasn't so little. It was actually a story about me, a fantasy in which I was escaping my wheelchair. And that escape would take many forms, based on what was influencing me at the time. You know, Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers. In fact, before this story, before Alex Andrewson showed up, I was influenced by Transformers, and at one point I was a man whose brain had been taken out of his body and placed into a metal body that wasn't disabled and had super strength and everything else. And at some point I decided, why should I be denying my identity as a disabled guy? So I struck a compromise with myself, in that I created a character based on me. In fact, he was me. He wasn't Al Anderson yet, but he was me and I was him, and this was my escape. But I had to create a trick whereby this character who was me and yet wasn't had to return to the wheelchair, had to still be disabled at the end of the day. And that's how I did it eventually. It was come up with a battery system that had a 12-hour charge. 12 hours on, 12 hours off. So that I could still be disabled, still have those issues, and yet still have a form of escape. So, a little bit about fact from fiction. The first fact that has to be addressed is the opening sequence, the nightmare that Al wakes up from, is startled out of. That is based on something that I remember from my childhood. My first surgery was when I was 4.5, and my memory of it is rather intense, in that I remember waking up on the operating table prematurely and with the surgery still going on. The explanation that I have always been given is that no, I was in fact in the recovery room after the surgery, and the doctor and nurse who did the surgery were there cleaning up the sutures and the stitches, and it was just pain from the surgery. But I remember everybody still being dressed in smocks and masks and hairnets and gloves. I remember blood, and I remember bloody instruments, scalpels, scissors, and so on and so forth, a tray of them. And I remember mirrors above me on the ceiling, circular mirrors, like an OR theater. So I don't know. I don't have nightmares about it. It doesn't affect me one way or the other, but it is a vivid memory. It is one of the most vivid memories I have of my childhood. And it just seemed like a good way to introduce the neurocerebral enhancer, because remember, Al doesn't know what he has inside him. It's a pretty good idea, but he doesn't know. So I had to find a way to work that into the story. Other facts. The neighborhood, Al's neighborhood where this takes place. That's my neighborhood. His apartment building looks a lot like mine. There's a church right across the street from my home. My university is in fact about 2.5 blocks away from my apartment, and there used to be an outdoor track separated by a fence that you could get to if you wanted to jump over the fence and trespass. So that also is fact. The fiction, and I don't want to have any question here. I have never had in my head a device like the NCE. Believe me, I wish I did. I think having the ability to walk and run on all fours like a cat would be a real thrill ride. But the NCE does not exist. Will it exist someday? Yes. Does the technology for it exist today? Yes. And something like this is coming. Now, the emergence of stem cells changes the equation a little bit, but something like this is coming, and society should be getting ready for it. I created this just on my own. In fact, the process I went through in creating it and refining it over the last 10 years is very close to what Al has done on his own. You know, cryptic conversations with university professors, physicists, doctors, this kind of thing, just for my own understanding. So there is the story. I know it wasn't a perfect performance, but frankly, when you've struggled with it for as long as I have, there was no way I was not going to put it up. It was going to go up. All I can say is I'm not embarrassed by myself anymore. This is the way it is. This is the way I am. And I'm okay with it. I'm comfortable with it. And we should all be comfortable with the way we are, with who we are. That's really what YouTube is about. Broadcasting yourself. And as long as my rights with regard to the story were not put in jeopardy, I was okay with sharing the story with all of you. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please send me posts with any comments, questions, criticisms you might have. I'm up for all of it. So I hope to see you soon in Rise Room. Take care.